All desire is suffering. And I work really hard not to desire. I didn't tie my identity, my happiness to achievement of the goal. The goal existed to curate a journey. My goal is to be happier tomorrow than I was yesterday. We grew really quickly. So we're all bootstrapped. Grew from 0 to $25 million in revenue over a 6.5-year period and sold to Accenture in 2017. I think it's a little dangerous for someone to have never had a boss. Like, I think you lack empathy when you have never sat in the shoes of a direct report.
Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
If you don't reflect and then change, life just has a momentum. AI is the printing press, the discovery of electricity, and the internet wrapped up into one. The singularity is the moment in time when things start to change so quickly that we can no longer predict anything about the future. And I think that OpenClaw might be the beginning of the singularity.
Welcome to In the Arena. My name is Sean Dyke, managing partner here at Door 2. Joining me today, Mark Kasdorf. Mark, thank you for flying out and spending some time with us. Before we even set up this podcast, you and I had talked about, I want you on this thing when we get a chance to get this thing going for a variety of reasons. We'll start with a real simple one that, in your mid-20s, you start up a company, it gets wildly successful, and you sell this thing to Accenture 7 years later, and you're barely not even knocking into your 40s yet and have done these phenomenal things in your life. And that starts setting the stage for tons of other incredible goals that you accomplish. So if you're willing, I would love you to kind of just give us a story arc of personal, professional, the things that you think are relevant for folks that are listening to hear before we really drive into a bunch of incredible topics from AI augmentation of our life to raising children to a myriad of other complex things.
So I went from undergrad straight to grad school. About halfway through grad school, I had a company idea. I started to write a business plan, took a class at the School of Management. I went to law school and I took a cross class at the School of Management on how to write a business plan, ended up entering a bunch of business plan competitions, won a couple of them. One of them, part of the winning package was to close the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, which we did in 2009, which was super cool.
Incredible.
Graduated law school, didn't even bother to look for a job. Well, all in on starting a company.
A company that doesn't have anything to do with law school.
Oh yeah, nothing.
Perfect, brilliant.
Home automation and pre-nest is a long story, but it did not go well. We ran out of money in February 2010. There was a pretty big moment in my life. I had a 4-month-old at the time, at $100,000 in law school debt. I had a then wife who was not happy about going back to work. That was not part of the life plan.
Yep.
And I had one employee who needed an H-1B visa. He called me up right around the same time. My then wife was going back to work and said, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to fly out to San Francisco. I've got 2 months to find someone to sponsor a visa." I said, "Hey, give me 6 days before you buy that plane ticket." I set up a little shell company, a company, I guess. I don't know what makes a company a shell company versus a company. I set up a company and called up a couple of friends because I was starting to get integrated in the startup scene in Boston as I was trying to raise money.
Yeah.
And found a contract for him. Paid just enough money, didn't pay me anything, but paid just enough money to cover legal fees and a salary for him.
Brilliant.
2 months later, as I'm looking for a law firm job to try to help support my family and pay some debt, a friend calls me up and says, "Hey, you got a job for Ying. Do you think you keep 2 people busy? I hate my job." I said, "Well, maybe." And I called in a couple more people and found a role for him, and he joined the company. And this one paid a little bit more than I needed to pay him. So suddenly I had this very beginning of cash flow. And I needed to set up accounting books. No one gives a W-2 to a company at the end of the year. And I like learning new things. So I bought my daughter's, I'm a stay-at-home dad at this point. My daughter's sleeping next to me 8 hours a day. So I bought a book on double entry accounting and started to teach myself the basics of accounting. So I wanted it to all be software driven. And I didn't want to use QuickBooks Online because I was the 800-pound gorilla. I found some startup that was doing accounting for small businesses. And I set up the system. And I think it was May 2010. And the iPad came out. We happened to be building an iPhone app, my 2 people. And I send in a support ticket to the company that I had chosen for the accounting software. And I said, "Hey, the iPad came out and I wish I could wish you guys had an iPad app that I could do the books on. And I wrote into the support ticket, and by the way, we could build it. Kind of a cheeky support ticket.
Yeah.
I get an email back from the CEO of the company an hour and a half later saying, we're putting out an RFP for our iPad app. Why don't you submit a bid?
Okay.
And I remember, you have these moments in your life, like a flashbulb memory, I think they're called.
Yeah.
That you can I can remember what I was smelling in that moment where I was making sauce for dinner.
Yeah.
When I got that email, and I responded. Well, before I responded, I had to Google what is an RFP. I didn't know what an RFP was.
Love that.
25 years old.
Yeah.
And
the hell is an RFP? Yep.
I responded to this guy. I still have the email. I said, hey, I don't understand this document you sent us. I don't think you understand this document that you sent us. Why don't we do the whole thing, time and materials? And we won the contract. It was like June of 2010, right? And I've got all this debt. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I felt like the dog that had caught the car. I didn't know Agile versus Waterfall. I didn't know anything about software development. And all of a sudden we won like this quarter.
You have a law degree.
Yeah.
And curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speed up the story now, and I'm happy to revisit part of this arc. But that company I started kind of half by mistake was called Intrepid. We were one of the first mobile development firms on the East Coast. And we grew really quickly. So we're all bootstrapped. Never raised a penny of outside capital. Grew from 0 to $25 million in revenue over a 6.5-year period. And sold to Accenture in 2017.
Incredible.
So over the course of that journey, I had 3 kids. I built an incredible company with 150 people. I learned a ton. You used a term earlier in your intro. You said I went on to do better things. I've actually never thought of it that way. Like every stage of my journey is like a chapter that stands completely on its own.
Yeah.
And I loved every second of Intrepid. And I wouldn't say that I've done anything better since.
Yeah.
I think I've built on and had like different experiences. And sometimes I've wanted to do similar things. But that kind of 7 to 10 year chapter of my life was an absolute blast.
Incredible. You are currently the CEO of a company called Forge. The quick highlight reel of Forge, and then we'll jump into some of the focus areas.
Maybe before I get to Forge, there was a mini chapter in the middle. I did work for Accenture for 3 years, 34 years old, and had a boss for the first time. I really enjoyed my 2.5 years at Accenture. I think it's a great place. It taught me a bunch, and I'm not built to work for someone else. I think that'll be likely the last time I ever work for someone else. My P&L grew from 25 to 150 million in revenue. I think I did well there. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think it's a little dangerous for someone to have never had a boss. Like I think you lack empathy when you have never sat in the shoes of a direct report.
Sure.
So I'm glad I got the experience. I left in 2020, like right as COVID was starting, took about 6 months off and started this company, Forge. I think every great startup starts with a mission statement, and that mission statement kind of encapsulates a problem and a solution to that problem. And our mission statement was to build and power the next generation of trades labor. And the problem statement that we're focused on is the U.S. is rapidly running out of its skilled trades labor force.
Yeah.
And I kind of was doing a home project just like everyone else did during COVID. I was thinking about how painful the experience was, even though the people that were doing it were really good people. I started a bunch of research and realized that, basically everyone in Silicon Valley, that's kind of my world, is software in Silicon Valley. Everyone in Silicon Valley tries to solve everything with one of 3 solutions. They either want to marketplace something, right? eBay, right? Think eBay, think Thumbtack. You got buyers and sellers, and you match them up.
Sure.
Or they want to gigify it, right? Think Uber, which is very different than a marketplace, right? I want to, like, in an app, like book someone to come to my house and do a thing. Or I want to sell someone software, SaaS. And there's other stuff. There's e-commerce. There's some other business models. In the age of AI, they're selling tokens. But like in 2020, that was like 92% of all startups was one of those 3 business models.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them work for tradespeople. Thumbtack and Angie's List are breaking because we're running out of tradespeople. So the moment you don't have enough supply, a marketplace breaks, right? Gigification doesn't work because gigification works great if you want to to be an Uber driver, you need a driver's license, right? It's relatively low, and a car, relatively low credentials.
Right.
To install an HVAC system, like you need a 2-person crew with a $50,000 rig to show up and perform heart surgery on your house.
Yeah, that has incredible skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't gig that. It's too hard, right? It's HVAC is probably 2 orders of magnitude more complex than Uber. And selling people software, that's what everyone's doing. Tradespeople don't have any use for software. And I didn't want to be in the business of selling people software that they didn't really want.
Sure.
Right? You can make money doing that. It's possible, but it's painful. And we made this decision pretty early on to try to build a vertically integrated labor force. So we wanted to solve the shortage by training young people and building a new kind of culture for them to enter in the trades, employing them because that's what they want. They want a career, not a gig. And then selling trade services to homeowners who want a company that they can engage with to buy things.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of Forge. There's a bunch of hard lessons in there that we learned over the first couple of years. This company, I raised a bunch of venture capital. We've raised about $40 million to date. What we've evolved into after a lot of the learnings was we're still the same core mission, but we've really gotten focused on HVAC.
Right.
And we're a next generation heat pump company, integrating technology through the entire stack and doing a lot with AI right now and attempting to provide an incredible experience to homeowners where they're probably not used to that with trades companies that they've worked with. Not because other trades companies aren't good, but because, if you're a sole practitioner plumber who's booked out 6 months, you don't need to offer great experience. You might not be great at running a great business. You're great at doing a thing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to fix that.
So let me give this as a little bit of a backdrop because it's one of the things that I want listeners to think about in this context. When we started this podcast, one of the things that we started chatting about and positioning it as the vast majority of individuals simultaneously occupy 2 states, where they are and where they want to be. And those things don't typically overlap for many, right? So we will position that as a despair, as a desire, as a longing and interest to be in a better spot. And then what a lot of people do is they just sit in that desire, not necessarily excessively happy with where they are, and potentially unwilling to put the effort in to be where they want to be. And then they drop into a space that we look as an external locus of control where we blame the world around us for not achieving what we have. You could not be further from that truth. So my experience of you over the years, that when you have goal-directed behavior, it is incredibly architected. There's a scaffolding and there's a built approach to, I am at point A, I would like to be at point B. I am going to start moving in the direction of achieving point B. Is that, first of all, is that a fair assessment that there's an intentionality behind where you are and where you want to be? And I know you don't necessarily think of the way end to end that I'm mapping it, but is that a fair assessment of how you approach things?
I think so.
Please.
I'd like to respond a little bit.
Yeah,
so
please.
You led with, you used this word, which we talked about earlier, desire.
Yeah.
And I don't know a ton about East Asian philosophy and Buddhism, but I heard a quote years ago, which is all desire is suffering. And it really, really stuck with me. And I think it's part of my core philosophy.
I want to restate it just for me. All desire is suffering.
All of it. All desire is suffering. And I work really hard not to desire, right? Not to think about, so when I think about goals, I wouldn't, if I go back to Intrepid, at no point in time was my goal to sell the company. I was and am really good at setting 7-year, 3-year, and 1-year plans.
Yes.
The purpose of the plan, at no point in time did I lose sleep over I might not hit that goal. Like, I didn't tie my identity, my ego, my happiness to achievement of the goal.
Yes.
The goal existed to curate a journey. My goal is to be happier tomorrow than I was yesterday. Like, that's it.
Love it.
And like, a goal is just part of my personal happiness is chasing something, right? But I don't care what it is, right? You could swap out, I could chase almost anything. And I'm like very driven, but I almost don't care if I get the thing.
Sure.
Right. And if something more interesting comes along, I'm happy to change directions. So I'll give a concrete example of this philosophy in action.
Please.
Every year, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Every year since 2012, I do a couple of end of year ceremonies. My favorite week of the year is the week between Christmas and New Year's. And every year I go through these ceremonies. And one of the ceremonies is I take an afternoon and I open up my calendar to the first week of January in 2025, and 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I open up January, week 1 of January 2025. And I just kind of look at it. I look at all the meetings I was in. And I kind of look at every single week. And for every meeting of every single month, I make 2 lists. The first list is the UGG list. Like I look at a meeting
list.
and I'm like, if I had this tomorrow, I'd be like, ugh, I don't want to do that. Whether that's a one-on-one, like someone I have a one-on-one with weekly that I didn't really enjoy meeting with, or a customer that I didn't really enjoy talking to, or an investor that I didn't really like how they were, or a board meeting, or a dinner with a friend that I like, man, if I had to meet with them today, like I don't want to dinner with them. That feels like an obligation. And then the other list is, oh man, I'd love to do that meeting tomorrow. A direct report that I love mentoring, an investor that I love meeting with, a friend that I love having dinner with. And I kind of have these 2 lists and I say, okay, how do I cross out as much on the left as possible and add as much on the right as possible, right? And it's probably a little easier as CEO to do that.
Yep.
But I think it's only a little easier, right? If I wasn't a CEO and I had one coworker that I loved working with and one coworker that I disliked working with, I would go to my manager and say, hey, like I work really well with Sarah. I kind of struggle with Jim. Like, do you think over the next 3 months we could tweak roles a bit?
Sure.
Because I think I'd be more effective for the company and produce more and I'd be happier and that would make me better at my job. And maybe that's a very direct way of doing it. But I'm super deliberate as I enter the year about doing less stuff that I'm like, ugh, and more stuff that would energize me.
Sure. Which feeds directly into I want to be happier tomorrow than I am.
Yes.
There's an old thought leader, his name's Earl Nightingale. He has a quote that I've grown fond of. It's that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. It's it's progressively realizing something that I really want to realize. And by the way, that means today I'm successful if I progressively realize it. And then tomorrow I'm successful again if I moved it. And even if I move backwards and forwards, if I look at it on a scale, it's progressive realization of it. Fair in your thinking?
I think so. Okay. I think that's I like that quote. I've got to sometimes with a quote like that, I need 24 hours to think about it and ask ChatGPT to talk about things. But I like it. I think that's a good way to capture things.
And I think that's what I mean in this space of, like, you just gave a perfect intentionality in it. Like, I have a life goal of being happier tomorrow than I am today. So what's one of the ways that I can do that? I can be intentional about looking at my calendar and doing less ugh and more yay inside of it. I want to do more yum, yes, less yuck, and whatever those are. That's a good illustration of it. You, before we flipped lights on, you also illustrated one that you do with Krista, like on a more current basis, if you will.
Yeah, so my wife's name is Krista, and we started, we kind of experimented with this in Q4 and then kind of formalized it in Q1. But we do a biweekly, call it sprint planning, to use a term from Agile. So we do a sprint retrospective and a sprint plan. So the retrospective is we've got, a dozen questions that we ask each other and take very detailed notes in Notion. Yeah. You can put the notes anywhere. We use Notion. And the questions are, we've got a set of relationships, parents, kids, et cetera. How do we feel about those? And I like the word feel. Like, how do we feel about that relationship? Sure. Right? How I invested in it last week, over the last 14 days, the energy I got back from the other person. So we take those notes. One of the questions is, what was the biggest moment of joy in the last 2 weeks? Another question is, what was the biggest moment of stress? So we've got this, 15 to 20 questions. And then we do a sprint plan. We say, okay, based on how all of that felt, what do we want to change this week? It's kind of like a start, stop, keep.
It is.
And it's been incredible. Like the amount of, I think, I was talking to one of your colleagues, Chris, about this earlier. If you don't reflect and then change, life just has a momentum, right? And, and you've got your habits, and some of those habits might be healthy. Like if you run 3 times a week, you're probably going to keep running 3 times a week. And some might be unhealthy. If you drink every night, you're probably going to keep drinking every night. And absent these moments of reflection, that momentum just carries forward.
Yeah.
And I like really enjoy this tradition of pausing and being reflecting and be like, hey, do I like what I've done for the last 14 days? Do I want to continue those habits?
This is an impossible question. What percentage of the population do you think puts that kind of intentionality into looking at what was and what will be?
Probably not much. I mean, I think when I talk to friends about like these experiments that I'm running, like I have been called autistic. I don't think I'm autistic, but I like the degree of like rationality that I bring to
rigor and intentionality.
everything.
Yes.
Like I am very lucky to have Krista because I think most partners would find like some of this stuff pretty unromantic.
Yeah, I get it. I have a buddy that his name's Ted, and I was up in NorCal hanging out with him, and it was funny. We were going to talk about like where things were in life and what was going on, and he literally set up a flip chart. And I'm like, hell yeah, flip chart. And like we started working through and going, and I think a lot of people would think like, what are you doing? You're just talking with your friend. Yeah, but it's with intentionality. It's a planful approach to being happier today, tomorrow than I am today with it. This is, I think, a great example of the deliberate rigor that you put into pieces. And I think that over the years when we have talked, whether it's about parenting or whether it's about business, it's certainly things that have inspired me to look at like, I need to do that differently. And I think anyone listening, I think would have a hard time saying that wouldn't be valuable. I think the vast majority of individuals exposed to that idea would say like, man, that's actually a great idea. I should probably do that. But we don't do it. Why not?
Yeah. So if you do the sorts of stuff I do, you have no choice but to encounter a lot of, I'll use the term, uncomfortable truths, right? I think most people, so if you do the sprint retro concept, I don't think most people want to ask themselves the question, do I like the level of engagement I have with my parents right now? Right? And if the answer is no, like it's easier to not think that.
Yes.
Not delve deep. If you were to do that honestly, like you probably, a lot of people might not be happy with their marriage, their relationship with their kids, their relationship with work. I think it's easier to examine work. It's like less personal to say I don't like my job than to say I don't like my partner or I don't like my kid or I don't like my stepkid. It's almost like exposure therapy. Yeah. Like you have to start relatively small in exposing and forcing yourself to confront uncomfortable truths until you build that into a pattern and a muscle that you can flex and it stops being scary. And you also find that I think you solve a lot of stuff when you do that.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably the number one reason.
You know, it's the exact opposite of, we have a phrase in the firm we call the 4 deadly sins of blame, complain, defend, and justify. Yeah. And when you do what you're doing, it will systematically eliminate your ability to do that because we start to recognize that if I have a relationship or a business scenario or a relationship with myself gap, and I call that into truth, I bring it into the light and I look at it and say like, you know, I keep complaining about my fitness level, but when I look at last 2 weeks, I did nothing for that. So I either need to stop bitching or do something about it. It calls all of this. And so I think to your point, it creates a vulnerability and responsibility and potential ownership for you to do something, which how liberating is that? You're not just subject to the women way of the world. You actually can command outcomes in an effective way.
Yep.
But most people don't do that.
Well, I'll kind of bring in like a parenting concept.
Please.
My kids have maybe 2 or 3 axioms that they could like all stand up and repeat and rote by rote because I say them so frequently. And one of them is everything that happens to you in your life is your fault. Like I tell my kids this once a week when they complain about something, when they say something. And my standard example is like, I don't care if you get sucker punched in a bar. You did something an hour ago, a day ago, a week ago, a month ago that led to that moment, right? And I in a work context, people all the time bring up things to me that they're like, oh, there's nothing I could do about this one. I'm like, well, today was too late. 48 hours ago, 72 hours ago, a month ago, there were things you could have done that would have meant we wouldn't be here right now.
So many incredibly fun things inside of this. And so one, I want to knock on. Well, there's three that I want to hit real quick that we'll go through. One is, do you know William James, considered the father of American psychology, born 1840s, born into privilege, and father did well. He had, by all rights, he would have what we would call an easier life. That wasn't his experience. Like he struggled with life, a lot of physical ailments, a lot of just different challenges. He tried to go to college. College didn't work out, kind of bailed out of college. And then he ended up like, I forget where it was. He decided to do some sort of like expedition. He ended up in the jungles, ended up getting like malaria, like just a series of things. And there's this famous like essay entry or journal entry that he did that he said, I'm going to run an experiment. For the next year, I'm going to assume and believe that everything that happens to me is my responsibility, my fault. And if after a year, my life is not better, then I'm going to take my life. Now,
Oof, that's harsh.
It's an extreme statement. Now, obviously, he didn't, because one of his great quotes is that the most important thing every generation has to learn is that they can change their life by changing their attitude. By learning that you own the outcomes, locus of control when centralized, you're not in a space where you are, again, subject to the will and way of the world around you. So here's where it's also fun. One of the assessments that we use is we something called the thematic apperception test, and it looks at motive theory and understanding what drives people. And inside of that, there are these core things that we look at. They're called personal blocks and world blocks. They are the degree to which people perceive barriers to their progress or their success in their life is something they can do something about, a personal block, or something they can't do something about, a world block. So they say, it snowed. I couldn't catch the flight. It was impossible. Like, it wasn't my fault that the plane didn't show up. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. And we have found in our data sets that the more successful individuals don't have BWs, meaning they don't have world blocks. That doesn't exist. They believe that they can influence their outcomes in virtually every scenario.
I think every scenario.
Yeah,
maybe
better said.
I could cross, someone I care about could cross the street and get by a car, and I couldn't control that. But I can control, we talked about this last night, and it's kind of a heavy topic. I don't know how heavy we want to go here. But I can't control if one of my kids gets hit by a car. What I can control is the depth to which I allow my happiness to be controlled by the success of my kids, right?
Yeah.
So I can control that. I can think about that. I can consider that. I can ask myself, I think the more we tie ourselves to someone, anyone in our life, the more control we give that person over us. And I think there's a balance. Like, I wouldn't want to be so far away from all my relationships that I get no joy from them. But I think that to a pretty extreme level, you can control virtually every aspect of your own happiness.
Two curiosities on how you react to it. One, does the planfulness and purposefulness and intentionality with you put into life, do you feel like that can remove spontaneity and joy? The second one being the emotional investment in others for those individuals that are just wired in a way that is the je ne sais quoi of life. That's what matters to them.
So I'm going to do the second question first.
Please.
I am not saying that you should emotionally distance yourself from your kids. I think the uncomfortable truth, to go back to these like questions we don't ask ourselves, is how close do I want to be with my kids? And I think most people never ask that question, right? The answer, the like American default answer is as close as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where I think a lot of the baby boomers I know today define a lot of their self-worth on how close they are with their kids. And it is a default. I want to see my kids as often as possible. I'm going to oversimplify a bit.
Please.
The American definition of happiness is 2 cars, a house, at least one week vacation every year, being with your kids and your parents on Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter, having a sports team that you care about and a community around that. It's like having 3 friends. Like, there's this like definition, like the default definition.
I was like, check. Yeah.
And the moment you ask yourself, like, is that my definition? Am I happier when I see my parents on Christmas? Am I happier when I talk to my kids as often, as frequently as humanly possible? Like, do I want those things? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't want them.
Sure.
I hate the word should. I'm saying it's not a bad thing to ask yourself, when am I happiest?
You're well served to do that.
Yeah. And I am incredibly close to my kids. They're 12, 14, and 16. I would be devastated, but I am willing to ask myself, hey, like, am I too close? Like, what do I want that to be for me, for what would give me the most happiness with like this like core DNA that I've got, that I was born with, that I can't change. Like I've got a nature, right? And I think I can nurture myself. And within this distribution of my nature, I'm going to nudge myself one way or the other. And my goal is to nudge myself towards happiness. And I'll answer your first question now around, am I removing spontaneity? I think my philosophy is orthogonal to spontaneity. And I'll define, I love the term orthogonal. It's like
it's a great term. You have to define it. It's out of my language.
Like an orthogonal point is, it's like kind of related, but it's not really related. It's like intersects, but it's not like running along the same line.
Love it.
So
orthogonal, word of the day.
So when I say that it's an orthogonal point, if you're an incredibly spontaneous person, A, be willing to throw out a plan if a better one presents itself. And B, when I think about, sprint planning, right, for my next 2 weeks, I like to plan on a Tuesday night, like getting home at X time, having Y for dinner, then doing Z, then getting in the hot tub, then this. Like I like a lot of planning, right? A more spontaneous person might say, I want to get home at 4:30 and see what happens. Mm-hmm. But you should plan that, right? Who wants to go into a week not knowing what time they're going to get home? Like not being able to anticipate the joy of a clear evening or a busy evening or a work evening or a this or that. So I think the planning, if you love spontaneity, just time block and like leave the space for the spontaneous things and be willing to change the plan on a dime and never be upset. Don't get tied to a plan. But I don't think there's anything about being deliberate that is against being spontaneous.
Mark, I don't even know how long we've been talking now, the last 20 minutes or so, makes me think of a second or third call I had with you. You said, I think it's your family systems will describe you as all big talk and no small talk, which I love that. Similar space, like the willingness, the desire, and the interest to have the big conversations. I want to pivot us if you're up for it. Will you talk to us a bit about where your focus is right now, thoughts around AI, and we're just going to run with it and see where it goes?
Sure. I'll start with I'll zoom up one layer and start with the heat map.
Yeah.
We can come back to some of the other topics if you're interested, and then AI is a big one right now. My current heat map is one big area that I'm focused on is, I guess you could call it like the concept of self-actualization, and maybe it's something that everyone starts to go through in their 40s. Maybe it's like vaguely related to midlife crises, although I don't think I'm in a midlife crisis at all. But like, what's the highest and best use of my time? Yeah. Right. What would provide the most joy? And I actually spent I've started to research this concept of like awakening and the ego and the sense of self. And so that's like one thing that in the heat map world, I'm spending a lot of time on with myself. Second one is my kids. They're at this age, 12, 14, and 16. Yeah. Like I get 2 more years with my oldest to imprint on her before the only way I can impact her is modeling behavior. And the other 2, I've got a little bit more time, but I'm super conscious that I want to like make a big bubble of space right now for them. And then the third, I'm kind of excluding work. And then the third big one is AI. Like it's taking up enormous mind share for me.
One of our colleagues introduced me to a book called The Middle Passage. It's a very thin read. Worth a dig into. It's this point in life where we're looking at the construct inside of it as a provisional personality, that we had a sort of someone that we were for a long time and formed on a various different reasons. And then finally, when we reach this point in our lives, we have a different degree of discernment for determining like, where are we and what do we want to do? And so I think it's a more accurate way to not call it a midlife crisis. It's that space in which we are exploring differently. So it's a good read.
I'll give you another metaphor that I love. I don't know where I read this, but I love it. In the beginning of our life is like a canvas. Like our job is to like paint a picture, like figure out who are we. Yeah. And later in life, we become more like a sculpture. It's like, what do I want to carve away? Like what do I want to like it? And I am definitely like in kind of a carving away as opposed to a filling up.
Yeah.
I really like it. I'm enjoying this phase.
Yeah. Removing pieces to reveal what's actually there.
Yeah.
It's sculpting, right? You, among the vast majority of people I talk with, maybe the most of anyone I talk with, have explored the world of AI and how to integrate it and augment it and leverage it in life systems far more than most people I know. And I think a lot of people hear sort of what might be perceived as like this hyperbolic vantage point around what's going to happen with AI in the world and what are we going to do with it and how will it affect different realities. But I think you're kind of well-read and well-positioned to talk about some of these things. And so I'd love for you to explore that which you want to talk to us about. I'm not going to dig into it because I don't know the questions I even need to ask.
Sure.
So I want to hear your headspace for us around it.
I'm sure just like these are raw opinions, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like quoting blog posts. Sometimes if I am quoting a blog post, I'll tell you.
Tell me.
But my opinion is AI is the printing press, the discovery of electricity and the internet wrapped up into one, all at the same time, all in the next 3 years in terms of its impact on society.
Yeah.
Like it almost scares me.
Yeah.
How fast it's going to impact society. I started feeling this way when I got access to the ChatGPT 2.5 beta, and it hasn't changed. So I think phase 1 was just using ChatGPT a bunch. Phase 2, I went through this phase maybe a year and a half ago where I was downloading tools constantly, like trying new apps, trying new everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like beta software is buggy and painful, and it was the only way I felt like I could learn. Phase 3, which was last year, I got into vibe coding, which was a freaking blast. Like that was the most fun I had had since college, like playing video games.
For somebody listening that says, what the hell is vibe coding? What's the short version?
Yeah, so I've never written a line of code in my life. I don't know how to write code. I don't know how to look at code. I don't know how to read code. Not something I can do.
Right.
Vibe coding is having a conversation with an AI that then writes code for you. You test the result, and then you tell it to change things or do things, right? And I think what most people think of as vibe code, there's tools like Lovable and Replit that they're designed for a non-software developer to have a conversation and see visual things very quickly. Mm-hmm. When I decided I wanted to get into vibe coding, I did a whole bunch of research, and then I downloaded this thing called Cursor. It's like hardcore. Like it is in something called an IDE. It is meant for developers. But when I did my research, I'm like, the only way I'm going to really understand vibe coding is if I go deep. So for me, that was this thing called Cursor, and then like setting up. I think you've worked with DigitalOcean. I'd never heard of DigitalOcean. I like set a Droplet app for myself, set up my own server, like figured out how to SSH in. I didn't know what SSH meant. So
back to RFP.
Yeah. And just like, I think I spent 1,000 hours last year, like to the point where it started to encroach on family time, and like probably more than Forge should have been investing in, or the amount of time I spent on it. But it's like kind of what it took to understand. And then more recently, I've stopped vibe coding. I think the evolution of vibe coding is OpenClaw, right? I don't know how many of your listeners know what OpenClaw is.
Let's assume none.
But it's a big deal. Like I feel like, and I'll describe it and I'll talk about it. Have you ever read a book or listened to an album that was so good that you're like, do people know about this album? Right? I feel like if people knew about this album, they would talk about this album more. Like it's like that.
How am I just finding out about this album? Like
yeah. I'm like mad at my friends who didn't tell me about that the album existed. Yeah. And like that's kind of how I feel about OpenClaw right now. At some level, there's nothing that special about it. It's an LLM, and it's timed jobs, and it's ChatGPT has this thing called projects where you get like system instructions. It's that feature. It's like 7 different features that this guy, what's his name? Steinberger. I don't remember his first name right now. Put into an open source project called OpenClaw, like crammed it all together and released for free, like open source. It was released in November. And I think in February, it surpassed Linux, which has been around for 30 years. Linux was the most active, most starred open source project in the history of humanity. And in 4 months,
OpenClaw surpassed
Linux. I've kind of gotten a little obsessed with it. I think there's a chance. I don't know how many of your listeners know what the singularity is or what an event horizon is, but the singularity is the moment in time when things start to change so quickly that we can no longer predict anything about the future. And I think that OpenClaw might be the beginning of the singularity, like the beginning of the moment where things change so fast.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just describe it OpenClaw as. You have to use a terminal. It's a little technical. Right?
Define terminal. Assume we got some non-techie audiences.
It's an application on every computer that allows you to talk to the machine directly.
Perfect.
Run direct commands, right? It's ugly and it's basic and it's text only. There's no user interface. It's DOS.
Yep.
DOS was just terminal.
Yep.
I think.
Looked
Software
like it,
purists, like I might be making a metaphor that's like slightly wrong, but it's like close enough.
Yeah.
So you go to terminal, you like write a command that downloads the package and unfolds it, and you hatch your bot, right? And the first question it asks you is like, who am I to you? And it gives you some options, right? And it actually gives you like suggestions. Am I a robot wizard? Am I your chief of staff? Am I your assistant? And you like write a couple sentences, like you are X to me. And then it says like, who are you? And I tell it who I am. So you're in terminal, you're having a conversation with AI. It's using tokens. So you're not talking to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, but you have to put in an API key for one of those. And that becomes its brain, right? So mine is often Claude, or I've tested a bunch. You can swap out different brains and see different personalities manifest based on the decisions that those companies have made. But you have to put an API key, and then you can do anything. I give you some examples. So I hatched mine like a month ago, and I'm like trying to figure out like what it can do. Like I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what it's meant for. It's open source software. There's no company. There's no money they're trying to make. There's no problem they're trying to solve, other than this dude wanted it. And I said, hey, can you control the speakers in my house?
This is just like you typed this question into it.
Can you control the speakers in my house? I have Sonos. I didn't even tell it I had Sonos. I said, can you control the speakers in my house? It said, I don't know. Let me check. And like 90 seconds later, music starts playing. I'm not kidding. It just started playing. And it said, did that work? It like typed to me, is it playing? Like it didn't know. It doesn't have ears yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give it ears, but it didn't have ears. And I said, yeah, what did you do? And it said, well, I went on your network. I saw something. I like scanned everything, like took that list, like went out to the internet, figured out quickly that Sonos is speakers, found the instructions for Sonos, connected to them, and tried playing something.
And it worked.
And
now, okay, wait, let's get into the mind of Mark for 1 second. When that happens, so if that happens to me in my home, I'm now running around my house going, holy shit, yeah. I am paralytically excited and also a little bit freaked out by that ability. Does that hit you with that level of startle, or have you got enough exposure to it at this point?
I was startled,
yeah,
but it was raw excitement. Like no freaked out.
Yeah, sure.
Like just excitement.
Yeah.
Right? Like Christmas morning level excitement. Yeah. Like I now need to clear my whole calendar and tell Krista I'm working late.
What else can it do?
It's like, I'm going to be working on this till midnight. So the next thing, I'll give the first 3 things I did, and then we can talk about more interesting things. The next thing I did was I have this thing called a Vesta board. It's like a, train station that's things.
Yeah.
It's like one of those.
Yeah.
But for my house that has an API, something called the application programming interface. So you can connect to it and you can have it show anything. And
messages to your kids.
Yeah, quotes,
whatever,
like whatever you want
text.
it to show. It's like a living art in my living room, and I have an API key for it that would theoretically allow me to write an app. When I was vibe coding, I tried to write an app to connect to the Vesta board. Like I couldn't figure it out. It was complicated. Like even with vibe coding, it was too hard. Like I'm not smart. I'm not good enough at coding to figure that out. So I go find the API key. I paste it. You're not supposed to do this. Paste IP. Like if you want to get an OpenClaw, you got to like figure out secret management. Like there are some security risks, which we can talk about. But whatever, it's a Vesta board.
Yeah.
I go grab the API key, I paste it in. I say, hey, this thing's called a Vesta board. Can you control it? And 90 seconds later, hi Mark comes up on the Vesta board. Like went out to the internet, found the documentation, took the API key, connected to the Vesta board, and wrote me a message.
There's two camps of people right now. There are people trying to download right now. And there are people going, not a chance in hell. I'm moving to a farm in the middle of Ohio.
And then the last one, just to like finish off, like scaring people. So the third thing I did was I said, hey, you controlled my speakers. Could you like talk to me over the speaker?
No.
And it's like, I don't know. Let me check. 90 seconds later, I hear my speakers, hi, Mark, in like an ugly robotic voice. And I'm like, how'd you do that? And said, well, I went to the internet. I found a text-to-speech module that integrates with Sonos. I integrated the module. I recorded something and I played it. I'm like, oh, the voice was really, and then it said, I didn't ask it. It said, if you go get an 11 Labs API key, the voice will sound a lot better. But for now, this is what I could do with the basic text-to-speech stuff.
It tells you what it needed.
Yeah. It just tells me like, that's so that was my first 3 hours with OpenClaw.
I'm having a blast right now because people probably know this, but off camera is Chris usually sitting here with us all the time. And I'm sure Chris is also in the paralytic state that I am in right now on like, what in the hell is going on? I'm not even gonna ask a question. What's next?
Sure. So I'm now gonna go backwards a little bit and then come back to OpenClaw.
Yep.
I think I have a good friend who's a brilliant human. And he told me the other day, maybe 3 months ago, he feels like AI is making him dumber. He's outsourcing his brain to him. And this really surprised me because he's so smart. And that's like, and not that smart people have to think like me, but it was so different than my lived experience. I'm like, really? Because I feel like I'm getting massively smarter.
But to your point, your friend, and this is a common thing that people say, right? They say like, no, AI is making me dumber. That's not my experience either. I find that I'm getting smarter with it because I have it augment and amplify things constantly that I'm trying to learn more about.
And I'm like learning. And so now I'm going to take one more step of just LLMs and then I'll get to OpenClaw. So another use case that I told him, so one, I think it is, I'll use this word unromantic again. It is many people might think it's unromantic to have an LLM help you do gift giving. And it's like, I should know the person, right? I shouldn't need an LLM to help me. I think these are things that some people might say. My counter to that would be like, why would I not use all of the tools at my disposal to do the best job I am capable of doing, finding incredibly thoughtful things for my family?
Yeah.
And also like kind of try to do that in the least amount of time possible, right? If all things being equal, I can spend 10 minutes getting gifts versus an hour getting gifts, and it's going to be equal quality, like that extra 50 minutes of my time, like my partner would rather talk to me than have me invest in finding her a gift. If I'm going to get the same
scrolling
gift
through Amazon
anyways.
for 30 minutes, right?
So this year was the first year. This didn't happen to me in 2024 or 2023, but in 2025, and I didn't read about this anywhere. I just kind of, I think I came up with this someone on my own instead of from someone's blog post or newsletter. I took a family member and I wrote like a fairly detailed 4-paragraph psychoanalysis of them.
Goods and bads.
Goods and bads. Oh yeah. Like this particular family member is narcissistic and insecure in these 3 ways and incredible in these 4 ways and. Right. Like, I guess step 1, if you're going to do this, is be okay confronting uncomfortable truths. Like a lot of us
this goes back to some
don't
earlier.
think about the people we really deeply know and care about and what their like specific weaknesses are in a disconnected way. And for this person that I just wrote 4 paragraphs about, for this person in this moment, my budget is $250 because I didn't do anything big for them last year and I feel like I've neglected them, or $500 or $200 or $100. I said, give me 5 ideas that are all completely different. And it would give me 5 ideas and they'd be like pretty incredible. And then I'd be like, okay, this idea, I like this one best. Give me 5 like it. So there'd be this like 7 message string for that family member that's now like 20 different gift ideas. I'll give you my favorite one I got this year. I have an uncle who's his whole career has been an Apple scientist, works at Cornell. And for him, there's a 1904 like Science of Apple's book that for $104, I got a first edition signed copy of.
Which is unbelievably meaningful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
you would have
so
never
neat.
thought of that on your own. Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah. And pre-AI, it would have taken me like 6 hours of research. And I really liked my uncle. I was never going to invest 6 hours of research in his gift, but I loved finding him something that special.
Yeah.
So I think what I didn't do was all the searching. What I did was like the amount of time I would have spent searching, I spent doing this psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
And then finding
to get a better output.
To get something that I wouldn't have known to think of. So let me tie this back to OpenClaw now. And I don't know what I'm going to do, because what I'm about to describe sounds like a little dystopian, but a little bit utopian, a little bit exciting. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do, but I had 2 really long conversations around this gift giving with Gemini across Christmas and birthdays. I copied those really long conversations that had psych profiles on like a dozen family members, by like half was on my wife, with many, many gift ideas, ranging in budgets from like insane, I would never spend that, down to $20.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm thinking of doing, what I could do, is take those entire conversations, paste them into OpenClaw so that they will live in infamy. And now forever, I could have 1 month before everyone in my life's birthday, 5 awesome gift ideas based on those profiles in my inbox, or message to me through OpenClaw 1 month before their birthday. And it could ask like, hey, do you want to have a conversation? Do you want to go deeper on any of these? Do you want me to just buy one of these and have it shipped? And I've already had it buy things and ship them, right? So for me, what's so powerful about OpenClaw is like the leverage, right? So it used to be, if I wanted to find a great gift, I would have to spend 6 hours. Then with an LLM, it became like 6 hours got me 15 people more thoughtful than I was ever capable of doing before. Now, by just saving that conversation, in 0 time, I can get incredibly personalized gifts forever, right? So the leverage there is astounding. It's not just leverage on time, it's leverage on time times quality. 15 personalized gifts 3 years ago were impossible. No amount of Googling would enable me to find that Apple book.
Yeah.
None. And now, in 0 time, I could do that level of personalization times 15 people.
Well, if you take it to an extreme version, you could also tell OpenClaw when everybody's birthdays are, when Christmas is, and you could tell OpenClaw, make sure that you send them a gift.
Yeah. So for me, that would be inauthentic.
I agree, but I'm saying the capability exists.
Yeah.
You could remove yourself from the equation if you wanted to.
You could, and I'm sure people will. I think the people that do that.
So if you remove it from something like gift giving, take it to something more simplistic on like, ordering groceries.
Yeah.
So you remove the place on the need to feel authentic. Yeah. You could completely say like, hey, this is the menu that we're going to eat. Make sure I have groceries stocked.
But the reason I'm hesitating on the gift thing, what's authentic to me is in the least amount of time, I want to get the best gifts possible for the people I care about. And I need to be involved in that. Like I will always know things about the fight I got into with a family member. I'm like, this year's budget is not $250. This year's budget is skip, right? Or I'm mad at this person, or man, like this year's budget is like 4 times what I would. So I would never offload 100%, but the 5 ideas in my inbox for me to consider, for me to think about, for me to give OpenClaw additional context on that relationship in this moment, to pick the right one for this moment. It's push versus pull. Like, do I have on my, on my to-do list every day, there can only be 20 things. And I'm not going to get to 10 of them. I never need to have any more get gift for X on my to-do list. It's pushed to me.
Yep.
Right. And to me, there's nothing dystopian about that. That gives me more time with my loved ones.
Yeah, you get to offload those tasks that are not highest and best use.
Right.
And you get to concentrate greater and highest and best use. 2 hits for me, 3 hits. I'll give you all 3 of what I'm looking for as we wrap. Number 1, because I think it's just, it's good for the listening audience. A couple additional use cases, if you can, personal, professional, however you want to, and what those look like. And then the last one being, if people's curiosity isn't piqued, it ought to be. I tried to not use should in that scenario. Somebody listening, the podcast ends. What's the recommendation for how they start amplifying their understanding of leverage? in this space.
I think we have time for maybe one more use case. I'm going to do kind of a silly one. I am obsessed with food. I am a foodie. Like in every city I go to, like, do I have time for a Michelin restaurant? Like, do I have the budget to spend in this moment in my life? Like, who are the best chefs? I would say on average, I spend 2 hours per plane flight researching food in the place I'm going. I created an OpenClaw skill recently. So I had about a 1 hour conversation with OpenClaw, and I explained my personal food philosophy. What is going on in my head as I'm Googling, right? Because it doesn't mean fancy or expensive. It means excellent, right? And sometimes the best burrito is like $12 and the locals know about it and no one else does. But if you go to enough like Eater Boston, Eater LA, you can kind of find like the best burrito. So I explain my whole philosophy. And I really do mean philosophy. I gave analogies. I'm teaching someone. It was like I was talking to a therapist, trying to explain deeply my psychology. And then I created this thing called a skill out of all that knowledge. I said, and a skill is like a set of instructions. And I tied the skill to like a certain set of words, not even a certain set of words, a situation. I said, forevermore, when I tell you I'm going to a new city, look at my calendar, propose for my 3 meals, 3 options for each meal that are optimally located between my last meeting and my hotel, or like where point A and point B.
Which you can see on my calendar.
Using this philosophy. I will never have to spend 2 hours researching. I'll spend 2 hours if I want to. Sometimes researching restaurants is a lot of fun, but if I don't have time, I will never have a bad meal again when I travel, and it will take me 0 time.
It's a great example. You just get closer to the ideal state. Yeah. Call it food, call it gift giving, whatever it is, without having to dedicate the time that would usually get you those outcomes, which then allows you to not only have the better experience, but also to free up space to be with the children the next couple of years, or the time, or whatever those are.
So you asked like if people are intrigued, like how could they get into it?
Yep.
Step 1 is to do things like I did with gift giving or recipes. Find a use case. Don't use an LLM like Google. Find something and try to go deep. Try to change the way you do something. So I think that's step 1. Like you kind of have to do that. If you want to get into OpenClaw, you need a computer with 16 gigs of RAM. Any computer you've bought in the last 7 years probably has it. If you don't have one, the 16 gig Mac Mini is $600. And plug it into a monitor, get a terminal. I use Warp. I think it's awesome. And again, an LLM is your friend here. Ask ChatGPT.
It'll guide you on what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just ask what to do. Have it give you instructions and go hatch a bot. Like just use it. Like start using it. And you get stuck and it like crashes and it doesn't work. Ask Claude or GPT or Gemini, hey, what happened here? When the bot is spun back up, when it crashes and it goes down and it like takes a couple minutes to get up, ask it like, hey, what happened there? And it'll tell you. And just start doing stuff and then walk through your life and say like right now I'm in this moment where I cannot go through a day without 5 moments in time where I'm writing down in my little book here, I got to build an OpenClaw skill for this. Like this could make X moment of my life better and save me time.
Well, so you know what you've done. You know, Chris and I are going to be calling you to help us hatch our bots because this is something that it's phenomenal. Look, we knew this. We knew that we technically needed 6 hours for this conversation, so we'll just have more. Genuinely appreciate the vulnerability into the story arc, the insights and perspectives in different places, and your willingness to share your exploration and your journey and trying to figure out how the rest of the world, as we advance rapidly toward the singularity, that we can find ways in which we can augment what we're doing in some more uncommon and more effective ways, potentially. Mark, appreciate it, man. A ton. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean.
You bet.